Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing good and enjoying your day so far. Kaysan's inaugural Money 8's tournament goes down last night. Some familiar faces taking the victory, but also OpTic Texas in action against the Boston Breach yesterday in some scrims that were broadcast once again. Boston, of course, OpTic serious problems the last several times they played them, and in scrims last night, it was not a dissimilar story. Some banger maps here. OpTic with the series in the ends, but definitely a lot of work still to be done with the CDL getting back underway very shortly. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, we talked about this yesterday, but it was made official last night that Miami Heretics have got the visa approved for Super. So we saw this a while ago. Of course, they brought in Rencor. They actually started him. Eventually, Vickle retired, which was pretty surprising actually at the time. Lucky, Metals, ReeaL, of course, still over there. But Super and Rencor last year in challenges in the Spanish scene were the best players by quite some considerable margin, you might argue. And it seems like, you know, a shame for Heretics to not try and make it work with those players. So, look, Heretics are not looking so good so far this season. They still, though, have this Spanish COD upside, where they can upset probably anyone on their day, to be honest. And let's be honest, FaZe won the tournament this last weekend. The map where they got slammed the hardest has got to be the one where they played Heretics literally the first map of the tournament. Now, sure, then FaZe maybe weren't the same FaZe they finished the tournament as, but Heretics still have it in them to have those big results. It's just the consistency and also the search and destroy play is basically non-existent, as we saw, for example, map 2 of that series. So Rencor has been, I think, pretty good for Miami since coming in. Super is in that main AR role, really. So I think there is a good chance in the near future we see a Super as the main AR replacing Lucky with then Rencor, Metals and ReeaL. To me, that seems like a pretty good team. That may be what they go for. They've got the visa sorted now, so they can make that happen if they want to. There was this from Clay, who was talking, well, hinting at maybe something happening this upcoming weekend. So the Elite was going down. There was actually lots of talk about the way this was going with the Stallions, and we'll talk about them later on today. But yeah, Clay, there's something, a little something this weekend on the horizon, maybe starting this weekend, he says. Now, Clay's probably doing a good little bit of impression farming here, but of course it has raised some questions because we've been talking about the main Vegas Falcons roster, whether they need anything to spice up the way their season's going so far, because like XNID had that monster map against OpTic during the minor, but unfortunately the loss of Kicks and Khalid back to Saudi Arabia to deal with some personal stuff has really put them in a very tough spot right now, and maybe there's a couple of good players on their academy team. Whether it's going to work, who knows? Of course, some people have been speculating, get, you know, Yoda King in, get, you know, Pred into the roster, side up Clay, get him out of retirement. So, you know, obviously that's what people are speculating. I don't think it's going to happen, but if Clay were to pick up the sticks, it would be something quite spectacular to watch. Let's talk, though, about some of these scrims that were played, because OpTic, they couldn't stream their scrims the day before because of, well, they got chalked for some reason. But yesterday, they did play Boston, and this was a banger set, actually, which should be, to be honest, absolutely no surprise. Whenever OpTic have played Boston for probably the last, like, couple of years at this point, it always seems to be a banger for whatever reason, and I like the way that Boston have gone about things with their roster. Purge and Snoopy often just are like a nightmare to deal with, it seems, at times, and, well, this is OpTic making a pretty insane comeback, actually, here on the Skyline, ending up 250, 249 with that double kill from Huke to take the victory. So there were a lot of maps just like this. I wanted to go through, of course, some of the scoreboards. This was the Skyline 250, 249. I'll just bring up the other ones as well for you guys to check out here in a second. The reason why I don't always bring up the scoreboard is just because it brings up so many tabs that my poor Chrome is trying to, you know, wants a way out, basically, wants the easy way out. But, yeah, Skyline 250, 249. Big map here from Huke, as we saw, as you tend to actually see on Skyline relatively frequently. The Volts, then, was 250 to 241. So, again, another absolute banger map here. So, like, complete gruelers that OpTic are running with right now. I think there are questions on OpTic's, you know, efficiency and effectiveness, because Boston are a team that seem to be on some level a bit greater than the sum of their parts as it stands. Obviously, they got the bye in the minor. They were very competitive with OpTic in the minor when they played as well. They beat OpTic on a Hacienda, which is far from easily done in addition, and it seems like they can relatively frequently get outslayed and still be close or win. OpTic in this series were actually outslaying quite heavily at times. I mean, here it's, what is this, +6, +1, +7, -5, +2, +10. So outslayed by 12 kills here, OpTic, and they won by 9 points. So, you know, they won't be too happy to see that. They lost the Protocol, 250, 230. Again, another absolute banger map. Like, pretty much all of these maps were right down to the wire. And I'm sure that OpTic and the Green Wall will look at this series and think, you know what, you know, it would be nice to win a series like this in scrims a little bit more comfortably, but I still think OpTic have a fair bit to think about. They won the red card 250, 230, right back at them. Huke went 44 in 30, Dashy 41 in 34. Again, you look at the scoreboards here. I know that, what's that, -5, -6, so that's -11 +3. So again, outslayed by 10 kills or so, and they've won by 20 points. So, you know, OpTic will need to think about that a little bit. And also, I think they're a bit reliant on just Dashy getting all the hill time, which maybe is okay, and like, I want to give credit to Boston because they are a serious force. They do seem to be a team that can cause problems and threats to some of the top rosters. But yeah, I think JP will have had a fair bit to think about watching this. The only hard point that was very comfortable was, you guessed it, Hacienda. OpTic slammed them on this one, 250, 117. Again, interesting because they played at the minor and it was very, very close indeed. And of course, Boston actually won it with that Snoopy 3-piece that he made. But this time was a very different story. They outslayed by a mile. Again, Huke had a phenomenal map here, 36 in 22. Dashy was getting most of the hill time. And yeah, that's pretty much how it concluded. The controls, though, I would say, are kind of where the questions lie a bit with OpTic. It's been this way now for some time. I know that there's lots of OpTic fans who watch OpTic play Control and they think, you know, what are they doing? Because OpTic they really like to take space. They don't like as much to stack the point, right? And this has been a talking point for years now, pretty much since Cold War, about OpTic stacking the point. And to be fair, back then, they only had Dashy of this current crop of players. But even, obviously, when Scump was still playing and stuff like that, it was often a talking point that OpTic would seemingly prefer to, once they get some, you know, some people dead on the other team, they'll push up, they'll take map progress, but they won't necessarily stack the point. Now, it's not always the best thing to do, but getting someone in the hill in the, you know, control point at all times to at least stop the clock is usually the way you want to do it. And if you then stack 3 players in, the other team starts to scramble. So it is interesting because OpTic's control has been, you know, I'm not going to say it's been the most fun to watch, really, because like the way that they approach it, I'm not sure is the most optimal way. But it is the way that I like to do it. It's not like they've been bad at the mode necessarily. But I think in this series, they will have a couple of things to think about because they played, you know, Hacienda Control. Dashy was going absolutely nuclear this map, 46 in 32. Kenny with a bit of a rough time. But yeah, in the end, it was Boston that clutched up. They got the 3-2 win. Then the Protocol Control went Boston's way as well. This was a 3-1 on this occasion. Again, Kenny 19 in 26, not his best performance. And then they played the Vault Control, and this ended quicker with a 2. I think there was a scan and repair or something in here. So OpTic won this one, kind of, but, you know, didn't quite go down to the wire. Whatever. OpTic take this map, Boston take the other 2. That closes out a 5-3 map count for OpTic. So, yeah, very competitive. I think lots to take away. No real surprises on some level. OpTic winning the respawns or winning the hard points, mostly, but some of them very competitive. And then the controls actually generally going Boston's way. So we'll see how these teams get on, of course, this weekend. Matches resume tomorrow. But the other big thing from last night, of course, was this. The S&D Money 8 High Roller Edition. Kaysan's like inaugural S&D 8's Pro Tournament. I think down the line, especially with what was said about some of the Challengers players, as to whether Kaysan could open this up to amateur players as well. Is there a way to do that? Of course, people are really going to watch for the pros, but you know, maybe there's a way to allow 4 spots in here out of the 16 for amateur players or something like that, just because I think there is a feeling that, you know, especially with BPL no longer existing this year, as we managed to make it work last year, but for various behind-the-scenes reasons, it wasn't really possible this time around. that was giving opportunities in 8s for challenger players to play with the pros often, and they can do so when they organise their own 8s, but you know, there is an argument for a tournament like this. Maybe there could be a way to maybe every other week or something open it up to some challengers players. Interested to your thoughts on that. These were the teams in the end, so they went through, they picked everything. Kaysan got the job done. Kenny, Shotzzy, Envoy, Ghosty. On paper that's pretty nice. Dashy, HyDra, TJ and Skyz. Drazah, aBeZy, Huke and Kismet. ReeaL, Gwinn, Scrap and Priestahh. So yeah, good rosters. Those are the 4 that were formed, and in the end it was the #1 team taking it out. Scrappy was not an especially happy man getting rounded. I think that well, he wasn't maybe very happy with his team. I think this is the funny thing with Scrap, and he's always going to be like this, and it's just Scrap's personality, so like it's fine. I think it's entertaining, but I was thinking about, imagine that they actually did allow a couple of challengers players in here. If Scrap got paired with a challengers player that he doesn't think is very good, he would be fuming. Like, Scrap doesn't like playing with people that he thinks are going to cost him, and I don't know if that was exactly what was happening here, but I think that during this series, Scrappy was not necessarily fully of belief that his team was actually good enough, but you know, maybe they could have been, and to be fair, they weren't far off taking down the eventual champions in the first round. But yeah, so Kenny's roster: Kylo, Ken, Envoy, Ghosty and Shotzzy. Interesting that these guys got paired up, because as we're going to discuss in a few hours time, Kenny and Shotzzy, you know, bit of beef, not exactly beef I wouldn't say, but a bit of a disagreement there in their approach to some interesting stories over the last couple of days. So maybe it's really funny that they ended up getting matched up in this one and won the tournament as well. But yeah, Kenny's team, they go up 2-0. It looked like they were going to be able to close this series out comfortably, but to be fair, Scrap's roster, they brought it back. It went to a Game 5, and the Game 5 was a banger. Protocol, search and destroy. I think every single round, though, was a defense win. So, you know, sometimes I guess it just goes like that. And despite the trades happening, sometimes in the favour of Scrap's team, in the end, it was Kenny's team that got the job done. Game 5, round 11, reverse sweep denied. They move on to the grand finals, where they would meet the team that won this series in the grand finals. In the end, in a bit of a banger turn of events, aBeZy's team takes the win. This was pretty insane, by the way. I think we're going to see more and more of this as well from the Omni movement in the game as time progresses. He gets the kill onto Skyz, Dashy's around the corner, and aBeZy just slides out and guns him like that with no HP on the board. So I'm sure that looked pretty insane from Dashy's perspective. But in the end, it was aBeZy's team, I think, that made the finals, but Kenny's roster, they get the win. So the inaugural champions, week 1, and it's nice to see, you know, week 1, the plan is to do this every single week, pretty much midweek. So we have CDL matches on the weekends, and then midweek there's an 8 tournament that the pros are going to want to get involved in. Of course, they're not going to be happy getting rounded, especially when you're putting $250 in, basically, and then the winners take home, I think, $1,000 each is probably what it eventually became. Ghosty, Envoy, Kenny and Shotzzy, those were the winners at the end of the day. So, you know, congrats to those fellas. Very much interested to your thoughts and all this type of stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
I got pinch, bro. He's Gotcha.
Let him. Another one in our building. One's our front door. Front door. Neptune running right out. Nice. HyDra.
Shot from HyDra.
It's Skyz.
Yeah,
Oh, no, like,
Holy
bro, can anyone
shit.
like? Why are people scared of me? It's actually like this is why it pisses me off. How are people this scared of me? Nep is running away from me. I mean, this guy's not really, to be fair, but like still, fucking play the gunfight. I'm running at you.
He ran the wrong way.
Or run away at least.
Jesus, ant fade, ant fade.
Fuck me, man.
Bro. Yeah, I'm down.
Oh my god.